What happens when a supposedly untouched mare suddenly gives birth to twins in the middle of a stormy night? The truth behind this night will leave you speechless. The thunder crashed so loudly it shook the window panes of the aging farmhouse. Eleanor Vance stood at the kitchen sink, staring out into the blackness beyond her rain-streaked reflection. It had been a miserable day, and the night seemed intent on finishing her off. But somewhere between the rumbles, another sound reached her ears, a frantic, piercing whinny. Her heart skipped. She recognized Nicky's voice anywhere. "Nicky is all I have left." The words tumbled out, half to herself, half to the battered kitchen walls. In that moment, they felt more true than ever. The bills on the table, the bank's final warning, the empty chair across from her. None of it mattered compared to the white Arabian mare she'd raised from a foal, her one constant, her anchor. The scream came again, sharper this time. Eleanor dropped her mug, barely noticing as it shattered at her feet, and rushed for the back door, grabbing her old raincoat on the way. The storm slammed her full in the face, wind cold and wild, rain stinging her cheeks. But she didn't stop, not for an instant. She ran, boots squelching through mud, flashlight beam bouncing through the downpour, toward the barn. The barn doors rattled in their frame. Lightning flickered, and for an instant, Eleanor saw Nicky rearing inside her stall, eyes rolling white with terror and pain. The sound of hooves battering wood echoed above the storm. "Nicky, I'm here, girl!" She barely got the words out before the horse slammed her hind legs against the stall door with such force that Eleanor had to jump back. She'd never seen Nicky like this. So wild, so desperate. She tried to open the stall, speaking softly, reaching out her hand. "Easy, girl. I'm here. It's okay." Crack. A flying hoof caught her shoulder, sending her sprawling into the straw. The pain was instant, hot, and electric. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She struggled to sit up, blood seeping down her arm, and looked into Nicky's eyes. What she saw there wasn't anger. It was raw, unfiltered fear. Something was terribly wrong. Footsteps pounded in the mud outside. Dr. Mark Thorne burst through the barn door, drenched but calm, his vet bag in hand. "Eleanor, what's happening?" "She's in agony. She kicked me. She's never acted like this." Dr. Thorne didn't hesitate. He slipped into the stall, keeping his voice low but firm. "Back, Nicky, back. It's all right. I'm here, girl." He knelt quickly beside her, running practiced hands along her trembling flank. Lightning flashed again, illuminating his grim expression. "She's in labor, Eleanor." Eleanor's mouth dropped open. "What? That's not possible. She hasn't been with a stallion, not here, not anywhere." Thorne didn't answer. Instead, he started barking orders. "Get me towels and warm water, now. This is going to be rough. I need you, Eleanor. Can you help?" Adrenaline overrode the pain in her shoulder. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing whatever clean rags and old shirts she could find. The heater had broken last week. She prayed the foal, if it came, wouldn't freeze. Nicky bucked and thrashed, her cries echoing in the beams of the old barn. The storm outside felt distant now, irrelevant compared to the chaos inside. "She's losing blood," Thorne called. Eleanor tried to keep Nicky calm, stroking her mane with shaking hands, whispering, "It's okay. I'm right here. Please, girl, please." "Push, Nicky. Come on, girl. You can do it," Thorne coaxed, sweat beading on his forehead. For a long, agonizing moment, nothing happened. Then, with a wet, guttural gasp, a tiny, trembling form slipped out onto the straw, white as snow with a streak of black down its back. It shuddered, struggled, coughed. Eleanor sobbed in relief. She's a mother. Oh, Nicky, you did it! But Nicky's body convulsed again, harder than before. Thorne's eyes widened. There's another. Eleanor, it's twins. Get ready. Eleanor's mind reeled. Twins? It was impossible. But the proof was right there, in the way Nicky's body labored, in the way Thorne's hands worked desperately. Minutes crawled by. Nicky screamed. The storm howled. The barn lights flickered. Then the second foal came. Smaller, but alive. Thorne cleared its airways, coaxed it to breathe. Eleanor bundled both foals close to Nicky, tears streaming down her face. She looked up at Thorne, voice trembling. How could this be? No stallion, no pregnancy, and now twins? He shook his head, grim. I don't know, Eleanor, but this is a miracle and a mystery. Lightning split the sky. Eleanor watched as Nicky licked her foals, exhaustion plain on her face. In the swirling chaos of wind and rain, Eleanor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Because she knew, deep in her bones, that something was terribly wrong. She whispered, almost without meaning to, Nicky is all I have left. Thunder rolled over the hills, and somewhere in the distance, a shadow moved behind the barn window, just for a second. The next chapter in Eleanor Vance's life had begun, but what came next would turn her world upside down. The rain finally eased into a cold mist, but inside Vance Stables, the chaos was just beginning. Eleanor sat hunched on a bale of hay, her shirt clinging to her back, half from sweat, half from Nicky's blood. Her injured shoulder throbbed, but she ignored it, her eyes never leaving the two trembling bundles pressed to Nicky's side. The stronger foal, Spirit, was already trying to rise, his legs wobbling like spaghetti. The other, Flicker, was much weaker, her breath thin, her sides barely moving. The silence of the barn, broken only by the foal's small cries, felt almost sacred. Dr. Thorne crouched beside Eleanor, his gloves sticky with birth. The strong one's a fighter, he said quietly. But the little one, she needs help. We need to keep her warm. Hand me that towel. Eleanor nodded, feeling the adrenaline drain away, replaced by dread. She wrapped Flicker gently, rubbing her sides to get the blood moving. Come on, little girl. Don't you dare give up now. Thunder rolled distantly as Thorne examined the mare and both foals. I've never seen anything like this, he muttered, almost to himself. A single unbred mare giving birth to twins. Eleanor didn't answer. She was focused on Flicker, whispering encouragement, blinking away tears. Every few seconds, she checked for breath, for movement, for anything. Let's get some glucose into her, Thorne said. He produced a small vial, drew out a syringe, and handed it to Eleanor. Rub a drop on her gums. She did as instructed, heart pounding. Flicker's lips twitched, her eyes fluttered. Eleanor let out a long breath she didn't know she was holding. Spirit, meanwhile, was already nursing, determined and greedy. Nicky licked both foals, weak but vigilant. Eleanor looked up at Thorne, voice hoarse. She's going to make it, right? Thorne hesitated. If she keeps fighting, she's got a chance. But twins are rare for a reason, Eleanor. Sometimes. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clatter echoed through the barn. Eleanor flinched, instinctively shielding the foals. Thorne spun, flashlight scanning the dark. A raccoon, startled by all the commotion, darted from an empty feed bin, then vanished through a crack in the wall. Eleanor let out a nervous laugh, but her hands shook. Dr. Thorne gently squeezed her good shoulder. Why don't you grab your phone? Take a video for your page. Let people know the miracle that just happened. She hesitated, but then realized how much her tiny online community meant to her, especially now. She wiped her face, steadied her hand, and hit record. The camera captured everything: the exhaustion in her eyes, the blood on her shirt, Nicky's heavy breathing, Spirit and Flicker curled together, impossibly alive. Sometimes, she whispered into the phone, miracles come from the most unexpected places. She posted it, not thinking about the hundreds of people who might watch, just needing to share the miracle and the terror. Within minutes, the comments poured in. Is this real? Twins from a virgin mare? Name them Spirit and Flicker. Please give us updates. Wait, how did Nicky even get pregnant? There's no stud at Vance Stables, right? Look behind you at 016. Is that someone in the window? Eleanor frowned, watching her own video back. There it was, a shape, barely visible, a trick of the light, or something more? A cold feeling spread through her gut. Before she could dwell on it, her phone rang. Arthur. Eleanor, what the hell is going on? Are you okay? She tried to sound steady. We're okay. Nicky had twins. Thorne's here. Silence. Twins? How is that possible? I don't know, she said. I need you home, Arthur. Something isn't right. He promised to be back by noon, but Eleanor heard doubt in his voice. Dr. Thorne was finishing up, cleaning his hands. I'm going to come back in a few hours. If Flicker's not nursing by then, we'll try a bottle. Eleanor nodded. Thank you, Mark, for everything. He hesitated at the door. Eleanor, I need to be honest. This is, well, it's not just rare. It's unexplainable. I want to run some tests on the foals and Nicky. You okay with that? She nodded. Do whatever you have to. He gave her a reassuring smile and slipped into the rain. Back inside, Eleanor made a little nest of straw and towels for the foals, dragging a heater as close as the cord would reach. She watched the sun rise through the battered barn windows, painting everything gold. Spirit and Flicker pressed together for warmth, Nicky's chin resting protectively over them. Eleanor's exhaustion hit her all at once. She slid down against the wall, eyes half closed, mind swirling. Was it possible that someone had come onto the property? Someone with the knowledge and motive to do something to Nicky? But why? Who would want to hurt them? She thought of the odd maintenance worker who'd stopped by last week, the unfamiliar truck parked on the old service road, the shadow in the window on her video. But she was too tired to think. For now, there was only the warmth of new life, the comfort of Nicky's breath, and the knowledge that, at least for tonight, she hadn't lost the only family she had left. But as she drifted into a fitful doze, one last thought haunted her. This miracle might not be a blessing after all. Sunlight struggled through low clouds, casting a pale silver across Vance Stables. The storm had passed, but its unease lingered in Eleanor's bones. She stood outside the barn, arms crossed against the morning chill, watching Flicker and Spirit wobble through their first hesitant steps in the straw. Nicky dozed nearby, utterly spent but alive. Eleanor knew she should feel relief. Instead, worry gnawed at her. The twins, the unexplained pregnancy, the shadow in the video, none of it added up. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that dark shape by the window, the wild confusion in Nicky's eyes, the blood on her own hands. She turned the mysteries over and over in her mind as the sun rose higher, casting the stable in sharper, more revealing light. Still, no answers came. By late morning, Arthur's truck crunched up the gravel drive. Eleanor heard the door slam and boots squelching through mud before he appeared in the barn doorway, his face creased with concern and exhaustion. "Ellie, you okay?" She forced a nod but didn't meet his eyes. "You should see them. It's a miracle." He stepped inside, gaze softening as he saw the twins. "Unbelievable, are they?" "Alive," she replied, voice tight. Flicker's still weak, but she's holding on. Arthur crouched beside the foals, running a hand through his graying hair. "How the hell did this happen, Eleanor? Nicky hasn't been near a stallion in a year." She hesitated, then handed him her phone, cued to the video from last night. "Watch this, and look at the window in the upper left." He frowned, played it twice, then squinted, jaw tightening. "That's probably just a reflection. It was pouring. Anything could make a shadow." She cut him off. "Arthur, I know what I saw. Someone was out there. And this," she gestured at the foals, "isn't possible, not naturally." He looked at her, worry deepening. "You're overtired. It's been a rough night. You're seeing things." She bristled. "Don't patronize me. There were boot prints outside the paddock, ones I don't recognize. I'm not crazy, Arthur." He looked away. "Let's not jump to conclusions. I'll check the fences. Maybe someone wandered onto the property?" Eleanor pressed her lips together. For years, she'd leaned on Arthur when things got hard. But now, with everything so upside down, his disbelief felt like a betrayal. She turned away, focusing on the twins, blocking out the old ache in her chest. Dr. Thorne arrived just after noon. He found Eleanor alone in the tack room, scribbling notes for the vet's log. He closed the door softly behind him. "You holding up?" She shrugged. "Just tired." He set his bag down, gave her a searching look. "You find anything else?" She slid the phone across the table, showing him a photo of the boot prints, clearly too big to be hers, the tread unfamiliar. Then she pulled out a small scrap of blue fabric, stuck with burrs. "Found this on a bramble near the tree line." Thorne's brow furrowed. He took a photo, then examined the fabric. Synthetic. Could be from a rain jacket or work pants. Doesn't match anything Arthur or I wear. Whoever was here, they got close. Thorne nodded slowly. "I want to run a full panel on the twins. DNA, parentage, the works, just to rule out anything strange." Eleanor's hands tightened around her mug. "You think this could be what? Deliberate?" He hesitated, then spoke softly. "Let's not panic. But I've seen things, Ellie. People experimenting, trying to make headlines or a quick buck. This area's quiet, but it's not off the map. If someone used your mare..." She shivered, hating the direction of his thoughts. "Do what you need to." Thorne stepped into the barn and gently drew blood from both foals and Nicky, explaining every step. Arthur returned, shaking his head. "No sign of forced entry. No tracks past the tree line, though the ground's messy." Thorne finished, packed up his samples, and promised results in a few days. "I'll check the clinic's security too, just in case." When the men left, Eleanor forced herself to rest. She stretched out on a cot in the old tack room, phone clutched tight, listening for every creak, every gust of wind. Late that afternoon, the twins stumbled after their mother, stronger than before, tiny tails flicking in the dusty sunbeams. A few neighbors, alerted by Eleanor's video, drove by to peek through the fence and offer congratulations. "2 foals at once? That's wild. What are their names?" "Spirit and Flicker," Eleanor said, letting a faint smile show for the first time. "They're fighters." She filmed a short clip of the 2 foals exploring the stall, Nicky nosing them protectively. For a few minutes, she let herself enjoy the ordinary miracle, New life, soft muzzles, sunlight warming the old wood. But as she uploaded the clip, she spotted something in the background, a fleeting movement near the edge of the field, too quick to see clearly. Her heart pounded. She posted the video anyway, adding a caption. "Whoever's out there, I see you. Don't mess with my family." That night, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She double-locked every door, checked the barn's old security camera system. Most feeds dead, but one flickered to life, showing static and blurred shadows. She rewound the footage, squinting at the broken, glitchy images. For a moment, between flashes of static, she thought she saw two figures moving near the barn, one limping. She pressed her lips together and made a silent promise. Whoever was behind this, she would find out. For Nicky, for the foals, for herself. In the darkness, as the farm settled into uneasy silence, Eleanor's doubts hardened into determination. She wasn't just a mother now. She was a detective, and she would not let fear drive her from the home she loved. The mystery had only begun. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. The wind had died, but a heavy tension pressed down on the farm like a second storm. She tossed and turned, replaying the events of the last 2 days in her head. The impossible birth, the shadow in the video, the unfamiliar boot prints, the torn piece of fabric. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Flicker struggling for breath or felt the cold, accusing stare of someone, lurking just beyond the light. By 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep. Pulling on her old sweater and boots, she made her way out to the barn, flashlight in hand. The twins were sleeping, Nicky breathing softly beside them. Eleanor watched them for a while, drawing strength from the sound of their tiny, steady breaths. This, her little family, was what she was fighting for. After checking the latches and turning up the old heat lamp, she slipped into the tack room. On a whim, she opened her laptop and logged into the farm's battered security system. Most of the outdoor cameras were dead, but the old one mounted above the paddock gate flickered to life, grainy but functional. Eleanor scrubbed back through the previous night's footage, eyes narrowed with focus. At first, all she saw was rain, lightning, the wild motion of the barn doors. But then, at 11:42 p.m., just before Nicky's first scream, movement flashed at the edge of the screen. A figure half hidden by shadows, moving with purpose toward the barn. She rewound and watched again. The person was tall, wearing what looked like a rain poncho, but their gait was off, uneven, almost a limp. A second, smaller figure appeared a moment later, ducking low and carrying something bulky. They both disappeared toward the far side of the barn, out of camera range. Her heart thudded. She took screenshots, studying every blurry pixel. It wasn't Arthur. It couldn't be Thorne. No one in her small circle moved like that. Her mind spun. Who would sneak onto her property on the worst night of the year? What did they want? With adrenaline sharpening her senses, Eleanor grabbed her flashlight and headed outside, following the path along the paddock fence. The grass was flattened in places, the ground still soft from the rain. At the far side of the barn, she found more boot prints, pressed deep into the mud. The pattern was identical to the ones she'd photographed earlier, large, unfamiliar. Nearby, something shiny caught her eye, a small metal syringe cap. Her pulse jumped. She bagged it in a sandwich bag and tucked it in her pocket. She returned inside and called Dr. Thorne, apologizing for the hour. "It's urgent, Mark. Someone was here last night, 2 of them. I have video and more evidence." She heard his bedsheets rustle. Stay inside, Ellie. Lock your doors. I'll be there as soon as it's light. Eleanor double-checked every lock and sat at the kitchen table, waiting for dawn. The evidence spread out before her like pieces of a terrible puzzle. The blue fabric, the boot print photos, the syringe cap, and the screenshots from the camera. She barely noticed the sunrise, painting the fields in pale gold. Dr. Thorne arrived just after 6. He inspected the evidence in silence, his jaw tight. We'll have the lab run tests on the cap. I'll look at the camera footage on my laptop. Maybe I can enhance it a bit. He hesitated, then said, There's something else. I checked the DNA samples from the twins last night. I need more time to be sure, but Flicker and Spirit aren't identical twins. In fact, they may not even have the same father. Eleanor stared at him, her blood running cold. But Nicky hasn't been with any stallion. She's never left my sight. Which means, Thorne said gently, someone intervened. Artificial insemination, maybe even embryo transfer. This is bigger than a random prank, Ellie. They were interrupted by a knock on the door. Arthur, his face pale. The fence in the north field was clipped. Someone used bolt cutters to get in. Thorne shared the news, showing Arthur the evidence and explaining his theory. For once, Arthur didn't argue or try to soothe. He simply listened, eyes dark with concern. Eleanor paced the kitchen. What do they want with Nicky? Why go to all this trouble? Thorne shook his head. If it's what I think, someone's experimenting, maybe with new breeding techniques, maybe something darker. Either way, you're a witness, Eleanor. We need to be careful. Arthur swore under his breath. I'll call the sheriff. At least get more patrols by the property. Thorne agreed. And Ellie? Keep the foals close. Don't let anyone on the property you don't know. Eleanor nodded, her resolve hardening. She spent the day fortifying the barn, adding new locks, securing the windows, keeping her phone charged. She updated her online followers, leaving out the darkest details, but sharing her fears. The comment section exploded. Someone's after your horses. Stay safe. I bet it's that rival breeder down in Ashbend. They'll do anything for a miracle foal. Check your help. Sometimes the danger's closest to home. Eleanor reread the last comment and felt a chill. She trusted Arthur, she trusted Thorne, but could she trust anyone else? The stable had cycled through temp workers over the years, some desperate, some unreliable. She thought of Luis, the stable hand she'd let go the previous winter, and wondered where he'd ended up. That evening, the sheriff himself came out, inspecting the fence and the barn. He promised extra patrols, but offered little hope. These days, with the economy what it is, folks do desperate things. Eleanor thanked him, but saw the doubt in his eyes. After dark, she lay awake in her small bedroom, ears straining for every creak. Downstairs, Arthur snored softly on the couch, keeping watch. In the barn, Flicker and Spirit huddled beside Nicky, safe for now. But outside, beyond the security lights and locked doors, the fields lay open and silent. Someone was watching. And Eleanor knew that until she found out who, no one, and nothing on Vance Stables was truly safe. The sheriff's visit didn't bring peace to Vance Stables. If anything, it only added a new layer of paranoia. Eleanor slept even less, her nerves stretched thin as wire. Arthur kept a shotgun propped by the door. Every time a car passed on the distant road, Eleanor's heart leapt. She forced herself to focus on Nicky and the foals, but the shadows pressing in on her mind were growing bolder by the hour. On the second night after the break-in, a truck's headlights appeared at the edge of the drive just past midnight. Eleanor's stomach clenched. She watched from behind the curtain, heart hammering. The truck rolled to a stop by the old workshop. A tall figure stepped out, broad-shouldered, moving with deliberate calm. Arthur whispered, "It's Montgomery. What the hell is he doing here at this hour?" Eleanor stiffened. Montgomery, Arthur's old friend, once a partner in running the stable. But their friendship had frayed after too many arguments about money, labor, and the future of Vance Stables. He hadn't set foot on the property in months. Why now? Arthur loaded the shotgun and gestured for Eleanor to stay back, but she shook her head. "I want answers," she whispered. They moved together across the yard, boots silent on the dew-wet grass. Montgomery stood in the half-light by his truck, fumbling with something in the passenger seat. When he saw them, he straightened, expression unreadable. "What are you doing here, Monty?" Arthur called, voice tight. Montgomery shrugged, but his eyes slid away. "Just checking up. I heard there was trouble." "At midnight," Eleanor snapped. "Funny timing. You been in touch with anyone from Ashbend lately?" He bristled. "You accusing me of something, Ellie?" Arthur stepped between them. "Nobody's accusing anybody. Just a lot of weird stuff happening. If you know anything, tell us now." Montgomery's jaw tightened. "Maybe I just care about this place, even if you two ran me off." Eleanor's temper flared. "Don't play the victim. Someone broke in. Nicky nearly died. My foals could have been killed." "What do you know?" Montgomery looked away, then back, his voice softer. "You think I'd hurt Nicky? You think I'd come out here like a thief?" "No," Arthur said. "But people change, Monty. And you've got debts of your own." Montgomery's fists clenched. "I came to check on things, that's all. Figured you'd need help, but if I'm not welcome—" Eleanor stepped closer, her voice icy. "What's that in your truck?" He hesitated. Eleanor lunged forward, swinging the door open. Inside were a pair of muddy work boots, a torn rain poncho, and a crowbar. She pulled out the poncho, holding it up. It was navy blue, synthetic, almost identical to the scrap she'd found by the bramble. Her heart raced. "Explain this." Montgomery stared at the ground. "It's mine. It's been in there all season. Boots too. You think I'm your midnight intruder?" Eleanor's voice rose. "Then whose footprints are all over my paddock? Who's been watching my barn?" Montgomery's eyes blazed. "You really want to do this now, Ellie? I bled for this place. When you and Arthur were drowning in bills, I kept the lights on. And now, because something crazy happens, I'm the first one you blame." Arthur grabbed Eleanor's arm. "Let it go. Let the sheriff handle it." But she couldn't let it go. "We found a syringe cap. A camera caught 2 people sneaking around. And this," she waved the poncho, "matches exactly what I found outside. That's a lot of coincidence." Montgomery stared at her, pain flickering across his face. "You think you know me. You don't. Not anymore." He climbed back into his truck and slammed the door. For a moment, Eleanor thought he might lunge at her, but he just sat there, gripping the wheel, knuckles white. Arthur stepped back, voice low. "He's not the type, Ellie. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things." Montgomery fired up the engine. The truck's headlights swept across the yard, catching Eleanor's face, and for a moment she saw herself reflected in the glass. Tired, hard, suspicious. When he drove off, Eleanor and Arthur stood in silence. The barn loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the sky. Arthur finally spoke. "You crossed a line, Ellie?" She whirled on him. "Someone tried to hurt my horses. Our family. What would you have me do? Just sit and wait?" He looked exhausted. Montgomery's been lost since his wife died. He's not a criminal. Eleanor's anger sputtered out, leaving only exhaustion and doubt. She stared at the poncho, turning it over in her hands. Had she just accused the wrong man? Or was Montgomery hiding something deeper? Inside, Nicky nickered softly. Flicker and Spirit slept curled together, oblivious to the tension swirling outside. Eleanor returned to the kitchen, spread the evidence out on the table and stared at it for a long time. Her certainty was crumbling. The boot prints matched Montgomery's size. The poncho could be his, but something didn't fit. The limp she'd seen on the security footage, the intruder hadn't moved like Montgomery at all. She played the video again, frame by frame. In the shadowy footage, the limping figure paused, turning slightly. There was a flash of a face, too gaunt, too narrow-jawed to be Montgomery. A sick feeling bloomed in Eleanor's stomach. She'd made a terrible mistake. At that moment, her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Thorne. Need to talk ASAP. Results from the lab. Something's not right. Call me. She stepped onto the porch, the night wind cutting through her as she dialed his number. Thorne answered on the first ring. I just got the genetic profiles. Ellie, you were right. The foals aren't just unusual. They're impossible. Flicker's DNA matches Nicky, but Spirit's markers don't match any horse in the county registry. It's like she came out of thin air. Eleanor's knees gave way. She sat hard on the porch step. What does that mean, Mark? It means someone's been experimenting, and they didn't just pick your farm at random. As the line went dead, Eleanor realized the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. She had driven away one of her last friends and possibly let the real threat slip right through her hands. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the barn, a twig snapped. Eleanor looked up, heart pounding, but saw only shadows. This was far from over. The silence after her call with Dr. Thorne felt thick and suffocating, like fog rolling in over the fields. Eleanor sat on the porch steps, knees tucked to her chest, the cold seeping into her bones. The night was still, but her mind spun in wild circles, replaying the details, Flicker's matching DNA, Spirit's impossible origins, the limp in the security footage, the growing certainty that none of this was a coincidence. She hugged herself, staring into the dark. Inside, Arthur moved through the kitchen, banging cabinets and muttering under his breath. The argument with Montgomery had rattled him more than he let on. The old shotgun stood by the door, but for the first time, Eleanor doubted it would be enough. She looked out at the barn, its windows glowing dimly. For a moment, she wished she could run out and gather Nicky and the foals, hide them away from the world. But she knew that would solve nothing. Someone had chosen her, her horses, this farm. For what? She still didn't fully understand. A branch snapped beyond the garden. She flinched, adrenaline racing. She stared into the shadows, heart pounding, until a possum waddled from behind the tool shed and scurried off into the grass. She let out a shaky breath, nerves raw. Back inside, Arthur watched her silently. The tension between them was palpable. You okay? He asked at last. She forced a nod. Just tired. He studied her. What did Thorne say? She hesitated, then handed him the phone with the text. Arthur read it, brow furrowing. So Flicker is Nicky's foal. But Spirit? She doesn't match any horse in the county, Eleanor said, her voice barely a whisper. Thorne said it's like she appeared out of thin air. Arthur shook his head, rubbing his face. I don't get it. How does that even happen? Artificial insemination, Eleanor replied flatly. Or something worse. Arthur's face darkened. Why us? I don't know, she said, but I'm going to find out. She turned away from him and went upstairs, her mind spinning. She pulled out a battered box of old paperwork, vet bills, breeding certificates, receipts, and journals. She leafed through them, searching for anything that might connect the dots. She stopped at a receipt from 2 months ago. Arthur had ordered new locks and barn supplies. The signature on the delivery slip wasn't his. It was Louise Gentry's. Eleanor's stomach twisted. Louise, the disgraced stable hand, had left under a cloud of suspicion, and she'd tried to put him out of her mind. But now, the pieces began to slide together. She remembered the night 2 weeks ago when she'd woken to barking, the dogs in a frenzy. Arthur had told her it was just a raccoon. She hadn't checked for herself. She heard Arthur's heavy footsteps outside her door. He paused, then spoke quietly through the wood. Ellie, we need to talk. She opened the door, face set. About what? He looked pained. I should have told you earlier. Luis called me last month. He said he needed work, but I told him no. He sounded desperate. Did he come by the property? Arthur hesitated. He might have. I found cigarette butts by the fence and tools were missing from the shed. I thought it was just drifters. Eleanor stared at him, anger rising. You didn't think to mention this before? He shook his head. I didn't want to worry you. She felt her hands shake, but she pushed past him, heading back down to the kitchen. She grabbed her keys and flashlight. Where are you going? Arthur called after her. To the old workshop, she replied, voice flat. If there's evidence, it's there. Arthur trailed her into the night, the two of them moving across the damp grass, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The workshop was cold and musty, the door hanging crooked on its hinges. Inside, Eleanor searched methodically. Drawers, shelves, even the trash bins. She found it in a battered toolbox, an envelope unmarked, sealed with duct tape. Inside were photographs, grainy surveillance shots of Vance Stables, the barn at night, Nicky in her stall, and most damning of all, images of Louise Gentry and an unknown man, face obscured, by the paddock gate carrying equipment. Arthur stared at the photos, his face drained of color. What the hell? Eleanor flipped through them, her anger cold and sharp. In the background of one shot, Arthur's truck was visible, proof that this had happened while they were home. There was a folded note at the bottom of the envelope, written in a cramped, hurried scrawl. Don't trust the man you sleep beside. He knows more than you think. L. Eleanor's hands trembled. She looked at Arthur. What does this mean? Arthur's face crumpled. I swear, Ellie, I don't know. I'd never... She turned away, blinking back tears. They returned to the house in silence. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table staring at the photographs. She thought about the years she and Arthur had spent together, through drought, through bankruptcy scares, through the slow, stubborn hope that kept them on the land. And now, she was left to wonder if he had been keeping secrets all along. Dawn crept in through the kitchen window, gray and tentative. Arthur finally broke the silence, his voice raw. Ellie, I love you. I'd never do anything to hurt you or the horses. I swear on my life. She stared at him. Then why does it feel like everyone I trust is slipping away? He didn't answer. The rest of the day, Eleanor wandered the farm in a daze. The foals seemed oblivious, tottering through the field, Nicky grazing peacefully. But Eleanor felt the weight of every eye, real or imagined, watching her. That afternoon, Dr. Thorne arrived with a new batch of results and a grim expression. You were right, Eleanor. This was deliberate. The foal's blood work shows markers I've only seen in high-end equine labs. Growth hormones, synthetic antibodies. Someone's been using Nicky as a surrogate for experimental breeding. He laid out lab reports, lines of data that might as well have been hieroglyphs. Flicker is normal, Nicky's natural foal. Spirit is not. Spirit's parentage doesn't match any horse I've ever tested. Eleanor's throat tightened. Why would anyone do this? Why my farm? Thorne shook his head. Because you were vulnerable. Because they needed a mare nobody would miss, in a place nobody would check. I'm sorry, Ellie. She pressed her palms to her eyes, feeling the tears slip through her fingers. Thorne's voice softened. People don't always betray us out of malice. Sometimes it's just weakness. Eleanor remembered the quote from the Don E., and those words struck deep. She looked up at Thorne, voice barely a whisper. I trusted him. I trusted all of them. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. That's what makes this so cruel. As dusk fell, Eleanor wandered out to the barn and sat with Nicky in the foals. The air was heavy with the smell of hay and the gentle warmth of new life. Spirit nuzzled her hand, Flicker's tiny muzzle twitching in sleep. Eleanor stroked their soft fur, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing. She would never let her family, however battered, however broken, be taken from her without a fight. In the gathering dark, the secrets of Vance Stables felt as heavy as ever. But now at least, Eleanor finally knew the truth. A heavy hush fell over Vance Stables in the hours after Dr. Thorne's revelations. The sky had turned a threatening slate gray, the kind of color that made everything feel raw and exposed. Eleanor moved through the house in a fog, her mind battered by every possible question. The photos, the note, the missing tools, the lab reports that confirmed her deepest fears. Arthur tried to keep busy outside, checking fences and watering troughs, anything to avoid the house and its thick, suffocating air. But by late afternoon, with the wind rising and the sky bruising toward evening, Eleanor couldn't hold it in any longer. She found him in the garage, hands shaking as he sorted rusted wrenches into a battered toolbox. She watched him for a long moment, heart pounding. "Arthur," she said quietly. He froze. The tension in his shoulders was visible. His whole body wound tight as a spring. "What is it?" She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Don't lie to me anymore." He let out a harsh breath. "I told you, Ellie, I don't know anything." She shook her head. "No, I need the truth. All of it. What happened with Luis? Why were you hiding those calls? Why is his signature on the supply order? And why did he leave that note warning me about you?" Arthur dropped the wrench. It clattered to the concrete. For a moment he said nothing, staring at his shaking hands. Then quietly, he spoke. "He was desperate, Ellie. He called me begging for work, said he'd sleep in the barn if he had to. I told him no, but I did let him in to get a few tools he left behind. I didn't want to get you involved. I thought he was harmless, just down on his luck." "Why the note?" Eleanor pressed. "Why would he say you're hiding something from me?" Arthur's face twisted in pain. "I don't know. Maybe because I never told you he was here. Maybe he thought I was covering for him. Maybe he wanted to turn us against each other. I don't know, Ellie, I swear to God." Eleanor's anger was a living thing inside her chest. "You broke my trust, Arthur. Not just with Luis, with everything. You left me in the dark while someone experimented on our horse, on our family. His voice broke. I was trying to protect you. Protect us. I thought if I handled it, if I fixed things before you found out. You made it worse, she said, voice low, trembling. You didn't just break my trust. You broke our future. Arthur's eyes filled with tears, but Eleanor didn't flinch. For so many years, she'd leaned on him. Let him be the steady hand, the fixer. Now she saw how that comfort had become a wall, hiding secrets she didn't even know to look for. She took a step back. I need you to leave, Arthur. Just for tonight. I can't breathe with you here. His face fell. Ellie, please. Go. The word came out hard and final. Arthur wiped his eyes, grabbed his jacket, and walked out. He paused at the door as if he might turn back, then kept going. Eleanor watched from the window as he crossed the yard, shoulders slumped, disappearing down the long driveway toward town. For a long time, the house was silent except for the distant sound of wind in the trees and her own breath, shuddering in her chest. She sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands, letting the grief and rage burn through her. Finally, as the sky faded to black, she rose and walked out to the barn. The old boards creaked under her feet, but inside it was warm. Nicky nickered softly, lifting her head in greeting. Spirit and Flicker were curled together in a nest of straw, their sides rising and falling in sleep. Eleanor knelt beside them, running her hands over their soft coats. You're all I have now, she whispered, but that's enough. Her phone buzzed. It was a video notification. Her earlier post about the twins had gone viral overnight. Comments flooding in from strangers offering support, questions, prayers, even stories of their own struggles. For the first time in days, Eleanor let herself read a few. One caught her eye. You're stronger than you think. Family isn't always blood. She wiped her eyes and smiled a little. Maybe it was true. She started recording, her voice quiet but steady. Sometimes you think the worst thing that could happen is losing someone you love. But sometimes it's realizing you never really knew them at all. What matters is what you do next. You keep going. You find your way back. You protect what you have left. She posted the video, then put her phone away. Outside, the wind howled louder, shaking the barn walls. Eleanor double-checked every lock, every latch. She was alone, but for the first time, she felt something like resolve. She gathered blankets and curled up beside Nicky and the foals, determined to keep watch through the night. As the hours dragged on, memories flickered in and out. Her and Arthur laughing in the hayloft as kids, the night Nicky was born, all the battles fought and won together. She let the grief flow through her, but she did not let it drown her. In the small hours, she heard a car engine down the road, headlights sweeping the fields, then fading. Her pulse quickened, but nothing happened. Just the empty dark and the slow, steady breath of the animals she loved. As dawn approached, Eleanor knew the hardest part was still ahead, facing a future she hadn't chosen, but one she would claim all the same. Arthur might have left, but Vance Stables was hers, and as long as she could draw breath, she would fight for it. The storm outside was fading. The storm inside was just beginning to clear. The first true morning of spring came quiet and cool to Vance Stables, the light settling gently across the dew-covered grass. After the storm, both within her home and within her heart, Eleanor woke on a pile of old horse blankets in the barn. Flicker curled at her feet. Spirit nuzzled up against Nicky's side. For the first time in days, she slept deeply, dreamlessly, and woke without panic lancing through her chest. She moved slowly, body stiff, heart tender, but each small motion felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She brushed Nicky's coat until it gleamed, cleaned the foals with gentle hands, and hummed under her breath as she worked. Outside, the birds trilled and the sun warmed her face. After feeding the horses, Eleanor made herself a pot of strong black coffee and carried it out to the porch. She pulled her phone from her pocket, expecting a fresh avalanche of messages. The story of Spirit and Flicker had taken off overnight. Her latest video already had thousands of comments and shares. People from all over the country were watching, sending encouragement, prayers, even offers of help. Some shared their own stories of betrayal, survival, and starting over. Eleanor read every word. She found herself answering strangers, offering advice, or simply listening, and it felt good, like opening a window in a stuffy room. The comments grew more personal. My ex left me after my accident. You're braver than you think. I lost my farm, but stories like yours keep me going. Don't give up. Can we send you supplies? Set up a GoFundMe? You deserve to keep Vance Stables alive. She hadn't expected any of it. For so long, she'd battled alone, keeping her pain behind closed doors. But now, as she scrolled, she felt the invisible threads of community pulling tight around her, holding her up. It was in that spirit that she decided to document her day. Not for sympathy or attention, but because someone, somewhere, might need to see that survival wasn't always pretty, but it was possible. She started filming on her phone, her voice quiet but clear. Morning, everyone. Nicky's doing better, and the twins are thriving. Flicker's getting stronger by the hour, and Spirit, well, Spirit's living up to his name. Thank you for all your kindness. I know I'm not alone, and that makes all the difference. She walked viewers through her daily routine, feeding, mucking stalls, checking fences, gently treating Flicker's healing umbilical stump. She even showed her battered shoulder, half-healed but proof of what she'd weathered. As she filmed, a battered blue pickup rolled up the driveway. For a split second, Eleanor's heart froze, but then she saw Dr. Thorne step out, a tired smile on his face. He waved. You holding up? Better than yesterday, she said honestly. I think we're going to be okay. He nodded, pulling out a small medical kit. I brought some probiotics for the foals, and a fresh supply of sleep for you if you'll take it. She laughed, a genuine bubbling sound that surprised her. I'll take whatever you're offering, Mark. He tended to the foals, checking vital signs and growth. Flicker's bouncing back. That's good. They're going to need you at your best, Eleanor. So's this place. She watched as he worked, realizing how grateful she was for his steady presence. Thorne wasn't just a vet. He was the last piece of her old support system who hadn't let her down. The thought made her chest ache with gratitude. As they finished, a car pulled up, this time a compact sedan she didn't recognize. A man stepped out, a little younger than Eleanor, in well-worn jeans and a pressed shirt. He had kind eyes and a gentle, confident way of moving. He introduced himself as Philip Davies, a local farrier and part-time equine therapist. Heard you've had a hell of a week, he said, shaking Eleanor's hand. Came to offer a hand, if you'll have it. Eleanor hesitated, but Thorne gave her a subtle nod. You'll like Philip, he said. Knows horses inside and out. Philip grinned at the foals, squatting down to let them sniff his palm. Beautiful pair. Looks like you've got a miracle on your hands. Eleanor smiled shyly. That's what everyone keeps saying. He spent the afternoon helping her reset a crooked fence post and showing her some gentle massage techniques for Nicky's sore muscles. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did speak, it was always kind, thoughtful, and never intrusive. Later, they sat on the porch with Thorne, sharing stories and coffee. The conversation drifted to loss, to resilience, to the way animals can anchor us when everything else falls away. As the sun set, casting gold over the battered stables, Eleanor felt something shift. She wasn't healed, far from it, but she wasn't broken either. She was changing, growing, piecing herself back together from the inside out. That night, after Thorne and Philip had left, Eleanor scrolled through her phone one last time. Someone had tagged her in a post that was now trending. A montage video set to soft piano, showing Spirit and Flicker taking their first steps, Nicky licking them clean. Eleanor's tired smile. The caption read, "Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who fight for others, even when they're barely holding on themselves." Eleanor watched it twice, tears running down her cheeks. She left a comment. "We're all just trying to get through the storm. Thank you for standing with us." Before she slept, Eleanor stepped outside into the cool night air. The barn lights cast a gentle glow over the pasture. In the darkness, she whispered a promise. To herself, to Nicky and the foals, to the land itself. "We're not finished. Not yet. We're just beginning." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Eleanor believed it. By the end of the week, the transformation at Vance Stables was nothing short of miraculous. What had once been a tired, battered farm now buzzed with new life. Word about Eleanor's story had spread far and wide. Her online videos were being shared on horse lover forums, rural living blogs, and even picked up by a regional news channel. Donations began arriving. Bales of hay, fencing supplies, feed, even a new weatherproof foal blanket with Spirit and Flicker stitched across the side. Eleanor, for the first time in years, didn't feel alone. Neighbors she'd hardly spoken to in months stopped by with casseroles and fresh eggs. Old friends who had drifted away since her financial troubles called to check in or offered to muck stalls. Teenagers from the local 4-H club painted the old barn doors bright red and white, laughing and racing wheelbarrows across the paddock. Someone left a bouquet of wildflowers on her gate with a card that simply read, "Keep going. The whole town's rooting for you." Each act of kindness chipped away at the hardened shell that grief and suspicion had built around Eleanor's heart. She found herself smiling more, her laugh growing less brittle and more genuine. She filmed her days, sharing moments of healing, not just for the horses, but for herself. The biggest transformation, however, came on the weekend, when the community organized a surprise festival at Vance Stables. It started small, a few families with lemonade stands and barbecue grills, a string of lanterns hung from the fence. But as word spread, more people arrived, bringing folding chairs, homemade pies, and guitars. Eleanor stood at the barn door, stunned as dozens of faces filled her front pasture. There were toddlers in cowboy boots, old-timers in overalls, and city folks with shiny shoes, all mixing together, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Some came just to see the famous twin foals. Others, she realized, came to see her. She was standing by the gate when Philip Davies approached, grinning. "Told you you'd draw a crowd." Eleanor smiled shyly. "I didn't expect this." He looked around, nodding at the kids clustered near Spirit and Flicker. "You're the heart of this place, Eleanor. It's only right the community rallies for you." She blinked back tears, heart full. "I guess I forgot how much I needed all of them too." Throughout the afternoon, there were games, music, and laughter. Local musicians played bluegrass beneath the oak trees. Thorne set up a booth teaching children how to check a horse's heartbeat. Philip gave a demonstration of gentle hoof trimming, letting kids touch the tools and even try their hand at brushing the ponies. Every so often, Eleanor would catch herself standing still, just breathing, amazed at the joy returning to the farm. As dusk fell, a bonfire crackled at the center of the yard. The community gathered, passing around marshmallows and mugs of cider. Eleanor felt a deep, pulsing sense of belonging, as if the wounds of the past month, of the past year, were finally beginning to heal. But the day's warmth was shadowed by a familiar silhouette lingering at the edge of the festival. Arthur stood near the fence, hands in his pockets, watching quietly from a distance. He hadn't called since Eleanor sent him away. Now his eyes were full of longing and regret. Eleanor's chest tightened. All the anger and pain of their last argument mingled with a softer ache, a memory of the good years, of laughter, of hands clasped in partnership through so many storms. Thorne noticed her gaze. "You want to talk to him?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded. "I don't know what I'll say." "Say what you need, but remember, forgiveness is a gift. For yourself as much as for him." Eleanor took a slow breath and walked toward Arthur. He saw her coming and straightened, uncertain, bracing himself. She stopped a few feet away, the glow of lanterns painting his face in gold and shadow. "Hey, Ellie," he said softly. "Hey," she replied, voice catching. For a long moment they said nothing, just stood together in the hush of twilight. Arthur broke the silence. "I'm sorry for everything, for not telling you about Luis, for thinking I could fix things on my own, for making you feel alone." Eleanor nodded. "You did hurt me, Arthur, but I know you never meant to." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'd give anything to undo it, to come home." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled, a small, sad, forgiving smile. "I don't know what happens next, but I do know I want to move forward, maybe one step at a time." Arthur's shoulders relaxed a fraction. "That's all I can ask." They stood together for a while, watching the firelight flicker, letting the past settle gently between them. Not erased, but no longer a prison. As the festival wound down, Eleanor returned to the heart of the celebration. A few of the younger kids asked if she would let Spirit and Flicker out into the big pasture for everyone to watch. She agreed, opening the gate with a flourish. Spirit bounded out first, wild and proud, his legs already strong and sure. Flicker followed, more cautious, but quickly emboldened by her brother's enthusiasm. The crowd cheered, and for a moment, the weight of every hardship melted away in pure, shared delight. Later that evening, Eleanor gathered everyone for a group photo, setting her phone on a bale of hay. As the timer counted down, Arthur slipped quietly into the frame beside her. The picture captured not just faces, but the spirit of a community that had weathered the storm together. After everyone left, Eleanor stood in the silent yard, her heart overflowing. The night air was cool, sweet with the scent of new grass and wood smoke. She looked up at the stars and whispered a quiet thank you to the land, to her horses, to the people who hadn't given up on her, and most of all, to herself for surviving. Before bed, she uploaded a final video for the day. Tonight, Vance Stables was full of laughter and light. I don't know what the future holds, but I know now that I'm never truly alone. Thank you for reminding me how much we need each other. And thank you, especially, for giving me the strength to believe again. As comments poured in, one in particular caught her eye. Would you forgive someone who hurt you if it meant saving your family? Eleanor looked out at the glowing barn, where Arthur, Spirit, Flicker, and Nicky all slept under the same roof. Her answer, quietly and sincerely, was yes. She smiled, knowing forgiveness was not the end, but a kind of beginning. The first golden days of summer arrived at Vance Stables with the promise of a new beginning. Grass waved tall in the pastures, bees hummed among the wildflowers, and everywhere you looked, life was blooming. It had been months since that stormy night, the night when secrets were revealed, when family was torn apart and remade, when Eleanor's world changed forever. Now the old farm pulsed with energy. The fences were new and sturdy, painted bright white. The barn doors swung wide, freshly oiled, welcoming visitors from near and far. Laughter rang across the fields as children played tag and chased chickens, and neighbors stopped by for coffee, advice, or just to breathe in the peace that now settled over the land. Eleanor moved through her days with a sense of hard-won grace. The wounds inside her, betrayal, heartbreak, fear, were not gone, but they had softened, their sharp edges dulled by time, forgiveness, and the daily rituals of care. Each morning, she found Spirit and Flicker waiting at the gate, ready to race out into the pasture, their coats gleaming, their legs strong and sure. Nicky, the mare who had once been all Eleanor had left, had become a symbol of resilience, a survivor, a mother, a miracle in her own right. People from neighboring counties made the trip just to see her and the famous twins. Some brought their own horses for advice, hoping a little of Vance magic would rub off on them. Eleanor always smiled, shared what she'd learned, but she never called it magic. It was grit. It was love. It was community. One bright Saturday, as the fields buzzed with the preparations for the annual Vance Community Fair, Eleanor found herself standing by the big oak tree that had watched over the farm for generations. She looked out at the scene, tables piled with homemade pies and jams, children carrying armfuls of wildflowers, Arthur stringing up lanterns with help from Philip and Dr. Thorne. Arthur caught her gaze and smiled, a genuine, gentle thing that spoke of new beginnings and old regrets forgiven. Since the night of the festival, he had returned to the farmhouse, but things were different. There was more honesty now, more listening. The hard work of rebuilding trust was slow, sometimes painful, but Eleanor felt it each day, in the shared meals, the simple kindnesses, the laughter that came easier now. They were partners again, in work and in hope. Philip Davies had become a frequent visitor, helping with the horses, teaching the local kids, and slowly, quietly, becoming a friend Eleanor could rely on. Thorne, ever the steady presence, kept an eye on Spirit and Flicker's development, proud of how strong and healthy they'd become. The fair was more than a party. It was a celebration of the stable's rebirth. At the heart of it all was Eleanor, her hands stained with grass and liniment, her smile bright and real. She stood on a hay bale, microphone trembling in her grasp, as the crowd gathered round. "I don't have a speech prepared," she began, her voice soft but steady. "But I do have a story. Most of you know it already. You lived it with me. When the storm hit, I thought it was the end. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But what I learned, what I hope I never forget, is that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters." She glanced at Arthur, at Philip, at Thorne, and at the crowd of friends and strangers who had become family. We are not the things that happen to us. We are how we rise again. Vance Stables was almost lost, but it survived. We survived. Not just because of luck, but because of love, because of community. Because sometimes miracles come when you least expect them. There was a ripple of applause, and Eleanor felt her cheeks flush with gratitude. She stepped down, letting the fair begin in earnest. Games, music, and laughter filled the air. At dusk, as the sun painted the sky with streaks of orange and purple, she slipped away for a moment of quiet in the barn. Spirit and Flicker greeted her with soft nickers. She rubbed their noses and whispered, "You two are something special. You're why I never gave up." Her phone buzzed. A new comment on her latest video. She read it aloud. "How do you keep going when you feel like you've lost it all?" Eleanor looked at her horses, at the dusty barn full of sunlight and hope, and answered as if the stranger could hear her. "You keep going because there's always another morning. Because somewhere, someone needs you. Because you might be the miracle they're waiting for, even if you don't know it yet." She smiled, recording a quick video for her followers. Whatever storm you're facing, know this. You can come through it. You can rebuild. And you'll be surprised how many hands will reach out to help if you let them. Share your story. You never know who you might inspire. And if you've made it through, help someone else find their way. She ended the video and set the phone aside. A sudden shout came from outside, laughter and singing rising with the evening breeze. Eleanor stepped out and joined her neighbors, letting the warmth of connection fill the spaces the pain had once occupied. As the stars came out, a drone lifted off from the edge of the pasture, its camera capturing the stables in all their reborn glory. On the video feed, text faded in across the scene. Vance Stables where second chances bloom. The image would travel far, touching lives she'd never meet, reminding them that hope can return, even in the places you thought you'd lost forever. And so, as Eleanor stood under the endless Kentucky sky, she realized that her story, the heartbreak, the miracles, the fierce love and painful forgiveness, wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who'd ever lost, ever fought back, ever dared to hope again. Vance Stables was alive, and so was she.